Great pleasure to welcome Richard Schiff, the Emmy Award-winning actor and Democratic activist who starred in the long-running hit The West Wing. He was heavily involved in the 2008 and 2012 presidential campaigns and is rarely shy about his political opinions. He's currently starring in Rouge, a suspense drama airing exclusively on DirecTV. Thanks so much for coming.
It's nice to be here, Larry. Thanks.
All right. You're a Democrat. You worked for Obama. Did you work for Obama, right?
Well, it's assumed I'm a Democratic activist. I'm not officially a Democrat. Never registered officially as a Democrat. I worked for Biden in 2008. Campaigned heavily with him. Would be campaigning for him now if he had chosen to run. I'm kind of glad that he didn't for many reasons. Not for our sake, but for his sake. Just for his personal situation and the loss of his son, and the fact that that I don't think he would have won, at least that when he made the assessment. I think it was a long, hard journey to surpass Hillary at that time, and the last thing I would want him to do personally is to go through this and not win.
He's a great guy.
He's such a great guy and such a trustworthy guy.
So you're not a Democratic strategist. You're not a registered Democrat.
No, I'm an independent.
Therefore, you've never voted in a primary?
No, I have. When it's necessary, I
join a party to vote.
Yeah, but I don't. I'm not an official surrogate or anything like that. And did I support Obama? Absolutely.
And who are you supporting now?
Bernie Sanders.
Because?
Because he reminds me of what I believed in when I was younger and before I got involved in the West Wing, which I think pushed me much more into the mainstream than I had ever anticipated politically being. And when I was
young, the West Wing role affected you?
Yes. Well, I mean, I was meeting all these people who worked in the White House. You know, it used to be the only other time I was ever in Washington, D.C., was demonstrating against the war in Vietnam in 1969, you know, and so all of a sudden I'm meeting President Clinton and his writing staff and John Podesta and you know, they were coming to our set and consulting Lawrence O'Donnell and Peggy Noonan and Dee Dee Myers and so on. So all of a sudden you know, it's 7 years in this character. I was invited to all the parties all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? And so Bernie reminds me of where I was when I was younger.
Do you think he has a shot?
You know, the analysis of this stuff is so mind-boggling, and
the pundits have been very wrong.
The pundits have been wrong a number of times, and I think they want to come to a conclusion so they could put a headline in the banner. You know. You know, Hillary. And what happened the other day when Bernie, 3 landslide victories, and I turned on the news. I was in New York for 3 days, so I wasn't watching the news. I was, doing stuff. Come home, I turn on the news, and he wins 3 landslide victories, and there's all the news stations have gone to like other programming. There's no sit down and let's analyze this.
No one quite believes him yet. As they report it, he draws the crowd.
Both sides. They don't believe that Trump. I mean, a year ago, I was asked, because I'm such an expert on politics, I'm not, whether I thought Trump was going to, who was going to be the Republican nominee. I said Trump. And they went, why? Don't be silly. It's ridiculous. I said, well, that's what the polls are saying. And why would they lie back then, even a year ago? And both of these anomalies, Trump and Sanders, are hitting on a nerve. And,
one to the right, one to the left, but
yeah, well, the right and the left. I mean, when you think about
coming around the circle.
When you think about the right, I mean, if it's a dial and the middle used to be 12 o'clock, the middle has moved way around late. It's now 6 o'clock, and everything's backwards. And the left used to be the hard left used to be the side of the spectrum that believed in defending themselves and arming themselves, the SDS and the Black Panthers, and now it's the right wing that's so determined. It's utterly confusing to someone who's been around for a while.
I think if Sanders ran against Cruz, Trump would vote for Sanders. That's gotten so
I think
heated.
Trump would be so angry he wouldn't vote.
What do you make of Trump?
Oh, God.
Analyze this for me, Richard.
Yeah, because, no one has quite done it yet so far. I'm entertained by him. I got to admit, I'm one of the people.
You have to watch when he's on.
I'm one of the people who's going to watch just for the sheer entertainment of it.
The networks love it.
The networks love it. The ratings just came out for all the news. CNN and Fox and they're all tripling their.
They want him to be the nominee.
And they're pushing. And even when he's not on the screen, there's a Trump banner going on below it. I mean, when what was it? Fox was doing a town hall with each Republican candidate, and on the other channel, but there were 6 at the time, so they were doing 3 one night and 3 the next night. Well, at the counter program, MSNBC had their own town hall with Donald Trump, just so that they can get the rating. And it's mind-boggling. I think that he is something out of a Frank Capra movie. If you remember the movie Meet John Doe.
Yeah. In fact, he is the only one that can call in to the Sunday morning talk shows. Meet the press. Right. He could be on the phone.
Right.
Unheard of.
Right. They won't take my phone call.
No.
Or yours.
No.
I think that he's a true, Citizen Kane type.
Yeah.
Huey Long type guy, demagogue, no doubt. I've always been curious, haven't you, about how 1932 Berlin happened, how people can be so persuaded in a popular movement to elect somebody like
when
an Adolf
the country
Hitler.
is down.
What's that?
Country was down, economically down.
People were angry.
And they were angry.
And there was a certain speechifying that hit nerves, and then there's a momentum happening. And before you know it, and half the people think it's silly and don't take it seriously. Do you remember the the scene in Cabaret? Remember the movie Cabaret?
Sure.
Liza Minnelli. I remember they're always dismissing the Nazi movement. And at one point they're having their fun and they're walking in a park and there's a beer garden and a young Nazi, a kid wearing a Nazi uniform, stood up and started singing. And the next thing you know, everyone in the beer garden stood up and sang. And the 3 leads, Michael York and Liza Minnelli, were just stunned because that was the moment they realized that it's too late. It's already it's crossed the line. And I hope we don't get to that point here.
Fascism's on the rise in Europe.
Fascism, absolutely.
Is
fascism and socialism, right? I mean, it's like the 1930s again.
Is Hillary a weak candidate, a weak favorite?
Well, if my wife were here and I were to say yes, she'd kick me right in the shins because she's a very, very ardent Hillary supporter. I think that Bernie points out, as both these candidates are pointing out, is that anyone who does have these deep connections to super PACs and to Wall Street have weaknesses because of that. There is a lack of purity, right? There is a history of decisions that are confusing. The Iraq war decision on Hillary's part. And I don't understand why she doesn't defend it as such, saying that I was giving President Bush this weapon to help thwart Saddam Hussein, assuming that he wasn't going to need to use it. You know what I mean? Give the threat of an attack. She's never said that. She always says, well, I was believing the evidence at the time, meaning she was voting for war. But I always thought that vote was a vote for
the right to use it if you have to, last resort.
Yeah, as a last resort, so that it would be a negotiating tool.
Okay, given the people expect it to be Hillary will be the nominee, will the Sanders people come out?
I think so. Yeah,
you'll come out.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. As opposed to a Cruz or a...
Now, if Trump doesn't get it, will his people come out for the Republican candidate?
I don't think that all of them would. Do you?
I think he might even run independent. if he can get on the ballot.
I think, yeah, that's going to be tough to get on the ballot in enough states. But, you know, look, that's how Bill Clinton won, isn't it? I mean, that third-party candidate, Ross Perot.
Ross Perot elected him.
Otherwise, he wasn't going to win.
All right, if it's Trump
I would love for Trump to do that. I mean, I think, first of all, it'd be great to keep him in the news and keep us entertained, and then it would assure a win for Hillary.
If it's Trump versus Clinton, do you give Trump a shot?
No. I think there's a number that's a limit to how many people will go and vote for Trump. I think the limit is like 36%, and it's arbitrary, but I don't think it's going to pass 36%.
Do you think it's Fox News and the right wing that created Trump? I mean, he's always been around.
Yeah.
What created the Donald?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I'm equipped to answer that. But I think it's a lot of it has to do with the media starvation for any kind of big news, any kind of silly news, stupid news, angry news. And so Trump feeds that desire and that need so easily that I think the media created it. But, you know, it's almost like when we take out these dictators that we've originally put in there in the first place, and then we're surprised that one of the things that Trump talks about, which is not inaccurate, and then we're surprised by the chaos. I remember how Democrats were so excited by the fact that the Tea Party was splitting the Republican Party, and well, now the Democrats are going to take over, but you got to be careful, you know, what you wish for when a known entity, opposition, you know, breaks apart like that. And the Tea Party took it this way, and Trump has come in through the middle of that schism, hasn't he?
He has. Would you be okay if Kasich were the nominee?
Except for certain issues, you know, except for women's rights issues and some other very important things. I think he's a decent man. I really do. I like him.
I do too. Know him a long time.
Yeah.
Where are you on now, Richard? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future?
I think I'm a pessimist by natural disposition, and I think playing that character Toby Ziegler for 7 years kind of pushed me deeper down into that path. But I have kids, you know, and I want to be optimistic.
You really played a role that affected you in real life.
It did. No, it really did.
That's amazing.
You know, playing that character, I felt like Dee Dee Myers had an effect on it, because early on in rehearsals, she was consulting with us, and I said, you know, I don't know, we were just talking about what is it like to be working in the White House. And she told me the story where one day she was advising the President Clinton, and the next day, walking to work, the White House, passing every newsstand, she saw her opinion, which the president had accepted, on the front page of every newspaper around the world. And then she stopped and went, oh my God, this is important. And that hit me very hard when she told me that story, and I thought Toby was someone who just carried the world on his shoulder. Like every decision that he affected might affect whether people live or die, or stay in their homes or not, or keep their jobs or not. And that burden, you know, I felt it over the course of 7 years.
So what are you doing in Rouge?
Well, I'm playing a character who, you know, is not too dissimilar from this Trump guy where we've been analyzing, in that he is a megalomaniac. He is someone who literally doesn't care about the consequences that his actions have on anyone other than himself.
Sociopathic?
Yeah, sociopathic, and he's a power broker, he's a kingmaker, he's someone...
Wait a minute, Rich.
Yeah.
If roles affect you...
Yeah, well, you got to watch out now. Maybe I'll run.
if the Oval Office affected you, the West Wing affected you,
Yeah.
what if Rouge affects you? And Richard Schiff, calm, liberal Richard Schiff,
Calm?
becomes demonic.
It's been known to happen. It wouldn't be the first
Because
time.
you're a great actor, so you envelop your roles, you marinate.
This is true, and it does carry over to the everyday conversations on the set and the way I am on the set, and to the point most people understand that you're kind of in that character. But there was this one cameraman who despised me, and I kept looking at him because I'd spit out stuff, and I'd make fun of people, and hopefully in a fun way, but in a very much like Marty Stein, this character, and just throw darts at people, and I kept noticing this guy would just turn to me like wanted to punch me. And I mentioned it to one of the other camera crew guys, and he went, "Yeah, he really hates you." And then it was at
That's
the end.
good acting.
It was at the end of the. It was at the end of the run, at the end of the fourth season, where the guy came up to me and said, "You know what? He just realized that you're in character, that you're probably just in character." And I went, "Yeah, would you tell him? Would you just tell him? I'm okay. I'm a nice guy normally. I'm just, but the character." Other people can turn it on, turn it off like that. To me, I have to,
That's it. All right, Richard, close it out. Give me an opinion. Who will be the next president of the United States of America?
Wow, I'm going to say Bernie Sanders.
Good luck.
Yeah, right.
Great pleasure having Richard Schiff on the show with us today. You can catch Richard in Rouge Wednesdays at 9 on DirecTV. And for more information on the show, go to rogue.directv.com.